The first sign of trouble came when Ambassador Zexhi's body was found floating in the Thames, his chitinous shell cracked open like an egg. Detective Sarah Chen stood on the riverbank, watching the alien corpse being hauled from the murky water, and wondered how this was going to complicate Earth's already fragile relationship with the Galactic Empire. The Krill ambassador had been in London for 3 days, supposedly negotiating a new trade agreement. In reality, everyone knew he was here to assess Earth's defenses and report back to the Empire's War Council. What no one expected was for him to end up dead in one of humanity's most famous rivers. Preliminary scans show he was killed with a human weapon, Dr. Martinez reported, crouching beside the corpse with his scanner. High-velocity projectile, military grade. Whoever did this wanted to send a message? Sarah frowned. The Empire had been looking for an excuse to justify their expansion into human space for months. A dead ambassador would give them exactly what they needed. Any witnesses? Security footage shows a figure in dark clothing approaching the ambassador's hotel around midnight. Face obscured, movements unusual, almost like they knew where every camera would be. Before Sarah could respond, her comm device crackled to life. Detective Chen, report to headquarters immediately. We've got 3 more bodies. The journey across London felt surreal. Military vehicles lined the streets, and Sarah could see the massive shapes of Empire warships beginning to gather in Earth's upper atmosphere. The aliens weren't waiting for an investigation. They were preparing for war. At headquarters, the scene was chaos. 3 more alien diplomats had been found dead across the city. A Vorthak trader in his hotel room, throat slit with surgical precision. A Kaloran official discovered in his embassy office, killed by what appeared to be a sniper's bullet through reinforced glass that should have been impenetrable. A Therian delegate found in his heavily guarded transport, dead from poison that had somehow bypassed his species' natural immunities. 4 different methods, 4 different locations, Commander Walsh briefed the assembled team. But forensics confirms the same thing for all of them. Human weapons, human techniques, human precision. Sarah studied the crime scene photos. Each kill was perfect, clinical, impossible. Commander, I've worked homicide for 15 years. These aren't regular murders. This level of skill, this knowledge of alien physiology and security systems, we're looking at professional assassins, military-grade professionals. That's impossible, Detective. Our intelligence services have no record of sanctioning these hits, and our military assets are all accounted for. Then who? Sarah asked, but even as the words left her mouth, a chill ran down her spine. The answer came 12 hours later, when Empire Admiral Kethmore's flagship entered Earth's atmosphere and broadcasted a message across every communication channel on the planet. Citizens of Earth, the Admiral's translated voice boomed through speakers worldwide. Your species has committed an act of war against the Galactic Empire. 4 diplomatic representatives have been murdered by human assassins. This aggression cannot stand. Sarah watched the broadcast from her office, seeing the massive alien warship hover ominously over London. Behind it, dozens more ships materialized from hyperspace jumps. The Empire's 3rd Fleet, enough firepower to glass continents. You have 24 hours to surrender the perpetrators and submit to Imperial justice, Admiral Kethmore continued. Failure to comply will result in immediate military action. The Empire has been patient with your primitive species, but patience has limits. The transmission ended, leaving Earth in stunned silence. Sarah looked at the files spread across her desk. 4 impossible murders that had somehow triggered an interstellar war. But something didn't add up. Her partner, Detective Williams, burst into the office. Chen, you need to see this. We found something at the Therian delegate's crime scene. He handed her a datapad showing microscopic analysis of the poison used. This compound doesn't exist in any human database. It's synthetic, but the molecular structure, It's designed specifically to target theory and neural pathways. No human scientist knows enough about theory and biology to create this. Sarah's blood went cold. Run the analysis again. Already did. 3 times. Sarah, no human could have made this poison, which means the Empire killed their own people. Sarah finished the thought, her mind racing. But why? What do they gain from framing us for murder? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, appeared on Sarah's doorstep that evening looking terrified. Detective Chen, I need to tell you something. About the Empire, about why they really want Earth. They sat in Sarah's apartment, curtains drawn against the alien ships that now filled the sky like metallic storm clouds. 3 months ago, I was contacted by a resistance group within the Empire, Dr. Vasquez began. They call themselves the Liberation Front. They've been fighting imperial expansion for decades. Go on. They told me something that changes everything. The Empire isn't just conquering worlds for resources or territory. They're afraid. Sarah leaned forward. Afraid of what? Of us. Of humans specifically. Dr. Vasquez pulled out an encrypted datapad. According to their intelligence, every species the Empire has encountered follows predictable patterns. They either submit immediately when faced with superior technology, or they fight conventionally and lose within months. But humans don't follow patterns. We adapt too quickly, innovate too fast, and we never surrender completely. The Empire has run combat simulations, Detective. In every scenario where humans are given time to properly prepare and organize, we eventually win. Sarah stared at the data scrolling across the screen. Battle analyses, technological assessment reports, psychological profiles of human military leaders. The Empire had been studying Earth for years, and their conclusions were terrifying. From their perspective. They need to act now, while we're still relatively primitive, Dr. Vasquez continued. Every year they wait, we become more dangerous. So they manufactured this crisis, killed their own diplomats to justify immediate invasion. But the murder methods, the human weapons, staged evidence. The Empire has been infiltrating Earth for months, learning our techniques, stealing our technology. They killed their people with human weapons to make it look authentic. Sarah felt the weight of realization settling over her. So we're looking at war either way. If we surrender the non-existent assassins, we admit guilt and submit to occupation. If we refuse, they invade immediately. Exactly. But Detective, there's something else. Something the Resistance told me that might be our only hope. Before Dr. Vasquez could continue, every emergency broadcast system on Earth activated simultaneously. But this time, it wasn't the Empire speaking. Citizens of Earth, a calm, measured voice said, this is General Morrison, United Earth Defense Command. We are aware of the Empire's ultimatum and the false charges against our species. Sarah and Dr. Vasquez exchanged glances. There was no United Earth Defense Command, at least not officially. The murders of the Empire's diplomats were indeed carried out by humans, but not by any government agency or military unit. They were eliminated by assets that the Empire was not aware existed. The general's voice continued with chilling precision. For 70 years, since the Roswell incident in 1947, Earth's governments have been preparing for this day. We have trained specialists, developed technologies, and created protocols specifically designed to deal with hostile alien contact. Sarah felt her heart racing. The Boogeymen, she whispered. What? Dr. Vasquez asked. It's a term from military folklore. Soldiers who don't officially exist, operations that never happened, weapons that were never built, black budget projects so secret that even the people funding them don't know what they're funding. The broadcast continued. Admiral Kethmore, you have made a critical error in judgment. You assumed that humanity's official military capabilities represent our actual defensive potential. You were wrong. Through the window, Sarah could see the Empire warships beginning to move into attack formations. But something else was happening too. Lights were appearing in the darkness between the ships, small, fast-moving objects that the alien sensors apparently couldn't detect. "You wanted to face Earth's assassins," General Morrison's voice concluded. "You're about to meet them." Admiral Kethmore stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at tactical displays that made no sense. In the last 6 hours, he had lost 17 ships to an enemy that his sensors insisted didn't exist. His best scanners showed empty space where his vessels were being systematically destroyed. "Admiral, the destroyer Vexthalan reports they're under attack," his communications officer announced. "But they can't identify the attacking vessels." On the main screen, Kethmore watched one of his most heavily armored ships suddenly buckle in the middle, its hull splitting open like it had been struck by an invisible hammer. No energy signatures, no projectile traces, nothing that indicated what had caused the devastating blow. "This is impossible," he muttered. "No primitive species possesses stealth technology this advanced." His tactical officer, a young krill named Zeftai, looked up from his station with confusion written across his features. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy buildups across the planet's surface, but the readings don't match any known technology." "Explain." "The energy signatures are wrong, Admiral. They're using some kind of exotic matter interaction that our physics models say shouldn't work, and the power output is comparable to our own ship reactors." Kethmore's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Empire had conquered 47 star systems, using overwhelming technological superiority. No species had ever posed a real threat to their forces, but these humans weren't fighting like any enemy he had faced before. "Sir, incoming transmission from the surface. Audio only. Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was different from the general who had spoken before. This one carried an accent Kethmore couldn't identify and a tone of casual confidence that made his chitin crawl. "Admiral Kethmore, this is Colonel Jang, Earth Special Operations Command. I wanted to personally welcome you to our little planet. You are in violation of Imperial space, human. Surrender immediately or face total destruction." "Actually, Admiral, you're in violation of Earth space, and I'm afraid we can't allow that." Zhang's voice carried an undertone of amusement. "You see, your empire made a critical mistake when you decided to frame us for those murders. You killed Imperial diplomats. No, Admiral, we killed Imperial assassins who had infiltrated our world disguised as diplomats. We've been tracking your advanced teams for months." Kethmore felt his confidence wavering. "Impossible. Our operatives were undetectable." "Your operatives were sloppy. Did you really think we wouldn't notice when Ambassador Zexhai started asking detailed questions about our military installations, or when the Vorthak traitor tried to purchase uranium under the table? Your people weren't diplomats, Admiral. They were spies and saboteurs." The transmission paused, and Kethmore could hear explosions in the background. Another of his ships appeared on the damage control screen, listing badly after what his sensors registered as a catastrophic internal explosion with no external cause. "But here's the thing that really bothers me, Admiral," Colonel Zhang continued. "You didn't just send spies. You sent assassins to kill your own people and blame us for it. That's what we call a war crime. You have no proof of these accusations." "Actually, we do. We captured 2 of your operatives before they could complete their mission. Amazing what advanced interrogation techniques can accomplish when you understand alien psychology better than the aliens understand human psychology." Kethmore's communication officer was gesturing frantically. The Admiral switched to a private channel. "What is it?" "Sir, the humans are broadcasting the interrogation footage across all Imperial communication frequencies. The entire Third Fleet is watching our own operatives confess to murdering Imperial diplomats." The Admiral felt his world shifting. If this footage reached the Empire proper, if other species learned that the Imperial military had killed its own people to justify conquest. "Colonel Jang," he said, switching back to the open channel. "What do you want?" "Right now, I want you to withdraw your fleet beyond the orbit of Jupiter and await further instructions. Your invasion is over, Admiral. You cannot make demands of the Imperial Navy. We have over 60 warships in this system." "Had, Admiral. You now have 42 functional warships, and that number keeps dropping." As if to emphasize the point, another explosion lit up the darkness. The heavy cruiser, Moloch's Pride, simply ceased to exist, vaporized by weapons that hadn't appeared on any sensor. "How?" Kethmore demanded. "How are you destroying our ships without detection?" "Trade secret, Admiral. But I'll give you a hint. Remember that crashed ship near Roswell back in 1947? Turns out reverse engineering alien technology is easier than you might think, especially when you have 70 years to work with it." The implications hit Kethmore like a physical blow. The Empire had lost a scout ship in this system decades ago and assumed it had been destroyed in Earth's atmosphere. If the humans had recovered and studied it, "You've been preparing for this," he said. "We've been preparing for you specifically, Admiral. Every communication you've sent to this system for the past 5 years has been intercepted. We know about your expansion plans, your military doctrine, your weapons capabilities, and your tactical preferences. We've had teams studying your species' psychology and physiology. We know how you think, how you fight, and how you die." On his tactical display, Kethmore watched as his remaining ships tried to form defensive formations. But every move they made seemed to be anticipated. The invisible human forces struck with surgical precision, targeting ship weapon systems and propulsion units with an accuracy that suggested intimate knowledge of Imperial vessel design. "This is Colonel Martinez, 7th Ghost Battalion." A new voice joined the transmission. "Admiral, your ships are trying to target our orbital platforms. I should mention that those platforms have been operational since 1962. Your intelligence is somewhat outdated." Kethmore looked at his tactical officer. "Are we detecting orbital platforms?" "No, sir. Nothing except communication satellites and weather monitoring stations." "That's because you're looking for technology that follows your expectations," Martinez continued. "Human stealth capabilities don't rely on energy-dampening fields or sensor jammers. We use something much more elegant." "Which is?" "We hide in plain sight. Those communication satellites you're ignoring, half of them are armed platforms. Those asteroid mining stations in the outer system that your scouts reported as civilian infrastructure, military installations, that space station orbiting Mars that your intelligence classified as a research facility, it's a fortress with enough firepower to level continents." Kethmore realized with growing horror that his entire strategic assessment had been wrong. The humans hadn't been caught unprepared. They had been waiting. "How long?" he asked. "How long what, Admiral? How long have you known we were coming?" "We've been tracking your expansion pattern for 30 years. A third voice joined the conversation, this one with a crisp British accent. "Wing Commander Davidson, Royal Air Force Special Projects. We identified your empire as a potential threat when you conquered the Altair system. We've been monitoring your communications and infiltrating your territories ever since." "Infiltrating our territories?" "Admiral, how do you think we knew about the false flag operation against your own diplomats? We have assets throughout your empire. Humans can pass for a dozen different species with the right biological modifications. Your security is remarkably poor when you assume you're the only intelligent life in the galaxy." The bridge was silent, except for the steady reports of ship losses. Kethmore's invasion force was being systematically dismantled by an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't understand, and apparently couldn't fight. "Admiral," his communication officer said quietly, "we're receiving transmission requests from Imperial Command. They want status reports." "What do I tell them?" "You tell them the truth," Colonel Jang's voice cut through the channel. "Tell them that humanity is not the primitive species they expected. Tell them that we've been watching, learning, and preparing. Tell them that any attempt to conquer Earth will result in the complete destruction of any force sent against us. And if they don't believe me, then they'll send a larger fleet, and we'll destroy that one too. Admiral, your empire has grown comfortable conquering species that fight by your rules. We don't. We've spent 70 years studying every species you've conquered, learning from their mistakes, and developing countermeasures for every tactic you employ. Kethmore watched another ship disappear from his tactical display. What guarantees do I have that you'll allow us to withdraw? You have my word as a soldier, Admiral. Withdraw your forces beyond Jupiter's orbit, and you'll be allowed to leave this system intact. But understand this, Earth is now off-limits. Any Imperial vessel that enters our system uninvited will be destroyed without warning. The Empire will not accept this humiliation. The Empire will accept whatever we decide it will accept, Wing Commander Davidson interjected, because the alternative is the complete exposure of your false flag operation to every species in your empire. How long do you think your subject worlds will remain loyal when they learn that the Imperial military murders its own people to justify conquest? The threat was clear. The humans possessed not just military superiority, but the information necessary to bring down the Empire from within. They had turned a simple invasion into a political and strategic catastrophe. I need time to consider your terms, Kethmore said. You have 1 hour, Admiral. After that, we start targeting your flagship. The transmission ended, leaving Kethmore staring at tactical displays that showed his forces being picked apart by ghosts. Outside his viewports, Earth hung in space like a blue marble, seemingly peaceful and defenseless. But he now knew that appearance was the deadliest lie he had ever encountered. His species had awakened something that should have been left sleeping, and now they would all pay the price for that mistake. 6 months after Admiral Kethmore's humiliating retreat from Earth's solar system, the Galactic Empire was fracturing from within. The footage of Imperial operatives confessing to murdering their own diplomats had spread across hundreds of worlds, sparking rebellions that the Empire's military was struggling to contain. In a secure bunker beneath the Swiss Alps, General Morrison reviewed intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The plan was working better than anyone had dared hope. Sir, we're receiving updates from Operation Pandora's Box, Major Williams reported, entering the command center with a datapad. 17 more worlds have declared independence from the Empire in the last week. Morrison nodded grimly. Expected casualties? Surprisingly low. Most Imperial garrison forces are surrendering or defecting rather than fighting their own populations. The false flag revelation has destroyed military morale across the Empire. And our embedded assets? Safe and continuing to provide intelligence. The Empire's counterintelligence operations have been completely compromised. They're so busy looking for human infiltrators that they're not noticing their own people turning against them. Morrison studied the galactic map displayed on the main screen. Red zones marked Imperial territory, but increasingly large patches were turning green as worlds declared independence or yellow as they descended into civil war. Any word from the Krill homeworld? Yes, sir. Ambassador Zexhi's family has formally accused the Imperial government of murder. They're demanding a full investigation and war crimes trials. 3 other major Krill clans have joined them. What about the other founding species? The Vorthak Trade Confederation has suspended all military cooperation with the Empire. The Kaloran Council is demanding answers about the diplomat murders. Even the Therians are reconsidering their alliance. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had built its power on the assumption that conquered species would remain compliant and that founding members would never question Imperial methods. Both assumptions were proving catastrophically wrong. Sir, incoming priority transmission from Task Force Prometheus. Morrison's expression became serious. Prometheus was their deep space operation, the mission that would determine whether Earth's victory over the Third Fleet would remain an isolated incident or the beginning of something larger. Put it through. The holographic image of Colonel Chen materialized in the center of the command room. She was speaking from the bridge of what appeared to be an Imperial warship, though Morrison knew it was actually one of Earth's most advanced vessels, disguised with captured alien technology. General, Phase 3 is complete. We've successfully infiltrated the Imperial 7th Fleet and eliminated Admiral Vexcal and his senior staff. Casualties on our side? 0. The operation went exactly as planned. As far as the Empire knows, Admiral Vexcal and his officers died in a reactor accident. Lieutenant Commander Foster has assumed command using false credentials, and the fleet is now following our orders. Morrison felt a surge of pride. In 6 months, Earth's Black Operations Forces had achieved what conventional military strategists said was impossible. They had not just defeated an invasion, but had systematically dismantled an interstellar empire from within. What's the status of the 7th Fleet's assignment? We're 3 days out from the Zentrax system. Once we arrive, we'll begin the liberation operation. The Zentrax have been planning a rebellion for years, but they needed heavy weapons and tactical support. And they'll get both, courtesy of the Imperial Navy itself. Yes, sir. By the time the Empire realizes what's happened, the 7th Fleet will have suffered a mutiny and joined the rebellion. Another dozen worlds will be free, and the Empire will have lost one of their most experienced fleets. Morrison studied the tactical projections. The Zentrax system was strategically crucial, controlling major hyperspace routes. Its loss would effectively cut the Empire in half and make communication between core worlds and outer territories nearly impossible. Colonel, what's your assessment of Imperial response capability? Severely degraded, General. They're dealing with rebellions on 47 worlds, 3 major species demanding independence, and a complete breakdown of trust within their own military. Their remaining loyal forces are spread too thin to mount effective operations anywhere. And their intelligence about Earth? Still believes we're a primitive world that got lucky with captured alien technology. They have no idea about the true scope of our capabilities or our operations throughout their territory. Morrison nodded. That misconception was crucial to Earth's strategy. As long as the Empire believed they were dealing with isolated human activity rather than a coordinated campaign, they would continue making tactical decisions based on false assumptions. General, Major Williams interrupted, we're receiving a transmission from Imperial Center. It's being broadcast on all military frequencies. Put it through. The image that appeared was of Emperor Veltar himself, looking older and more haggard than in his last public appearance months ago. The ruler of the greatest interstellar empire in known history appeared to be a being under enormous pressure. To all Imperial forces, the Emperor began, we are facing the greatest crisis in our empire's history. Terrorist forces backed by the primitive world called Earth have infiltrated our ranks and are fomenting rebellion across our territories. Morrison exchanged glances with his staff. The Emperor was partially right, but he still didn't understand the scope of what he was facing. Effective immediately. All contact with Earth and its solar system is forbidden. Any vessel attempting to enter human space will be destroyed without warning. This quarantine will remain in effect until these terrorists can be eliminated. Interesting, Colonel Chen commented from her position with the 7th Fleet. He's trying to contain us. Too late for that, Morrison replied. Continue with the mission, Colonel. The Emperor's speech continued. Furthermore, any Imperial citizen found collaborating with human terrorists will be executed. Any world that declares independence will face complete orbital bombardment. The Empire's strength comes from unity, and that unity will be maintained at any cost. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in thoughtful silence. Analysis, Morrison asked. Major Williams consulted his data pad. Panic, sir. The Emperor is making threats he can't follow through on. He doesn't have the military assets to carry out orbital bombardments of rebel worlds while also maintaining security in loyal systems. And the execution order will likely cause more defections. Imperial soldiers don't want to become executioners, especially when they're not sure who they can trust. Morrison turned to the main display, watching the real-time updates from across the galaxy. Green zones were expanding as more worlds declared independence. Yellow zones showed increasing civil unrest. The red zones, representing stable Imperial control, were shrinking daily. "Sir, we're receiving a priority message from the Altarian Liberation Front," communications reported. "They're requesting immediate assistance. Imperial forces are preparing to execute civilian leaders as an example to other worlds." Morrison studied the tactical situation. Altair was one of the Empire's oldest conquests, and its liberation would send shockwaves throughout Imperial territory. "Major Williams, what assets do we have in the Altair sector?" "The 13th Ghost Squadron is operating in that area, sir. They've been conducting reconnaissance on Imperial supply lines. Redirect them to Altair. Full liberation protocol." "Sir, that's a major escalation. Once we openly intervene in a rebellion, the Empire will know this isn't just random terrorist activity." "Good," Morrison said simply. "It's time they understood what they're really facing." 3 days later, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Imperial garrison on Altair Prime had simply vanished overnight. No battle, no destruction, no evidence of what had happened to 3,000 Imperial soldiers. They had gone to sleep in their barracks and never woken up. In their place, Altarian freedom fighters had somehow acquired Imperial weapons, vehicles, and communication codes. The planet's orbital defenses, controlled by technology the Altarians shouldn't have understood, now served the rebellion instead of the Empire. But what truly shocked the galaxy was the message broadcast from Altair's capital. "This is Commander Sarah Chen, Earth Special Operations Command, speaking on behalf of the Altarian people and the human-led Galactic Liberation Alliance." Morrison watched the broadcast from his command center, pleased to see his former detective had adapted so well to her new role. Chen stood beside Altarian leaders in the planet's government center, looking calm and confident. "To all sentient beings currently under Imperial occupation," Chen continued, "know that you are not alone. Humanity has seen what the Empire does to those who resist its expansion, and we will not permit this cruelty to continue. The Galactic Empire told you that humanity was primitive and weak. They were wrong. We have been preparing for this conflict for 70 years, and we are prepared to fight for as long as necessary to ensure that every species in this galaxy has the right to self-determination." Morrison felt a moment of pride as Chen outlined the Alliance's goals: the dismantling of Imperial authority, the establishment of democratic governments on all worlds, and the creation of a galactic confederation based on mutual cooperation rather than conquest. "But we did not come here as conquerors," Chen emphasized. "We came as liberators. When this war is over, humanity will not rule the galaxy. No single species ever should. Instead, we will work together to build something better than any empire, a true galactic community." The broadcast ended with images of Altarian civilians celebrating in the streets, Imperial weapons being distributed to local militias, and human soldiers working alongside alien freedom fighters. "Assessment, Major?" "Game-changing, sir. 36 more worlds have declared independence since the broadcast began. The Empire is losing control faster than we projected." Morrison nodded. The endgame was approaching more rapidly than anticipated. "Sir, incoming message from Emperor Veltar himself. He's requesting direct communication." Morrison considered for a moment. "Put him through." The Emperor's image appeared, and Morrison could see the toll the last months had taken. The alien ruler looked exhausted, desperate, and perhaps for the first time in his long life genuinely afraid. "General Morrison, I assume that's who I'm speaking with?" "Emperor." I want to discuss terms. Morrison had expected this moment, but not quite so soon. What kind of terms? A partition. Your species withdraws from Imperial space, and we acknowledge Earth's independence. The current rebellions can be resolved through negotiation. And in return, the Empire survives. We both know that continued conflict will only lead to more destruction. Morrison was quiet for a long moment, considering the offer. It was tempting in some ways. Earth's objectives could be achieved without further bloodshed. But it was also incomplete. Emperor, your empire is built on the oppression of others. As long as it exists, it will eventually threaten Earth or other free worlds again. Then what do you want? Complete dissolution of imperial authority, democratic governments for all worlds, war crimes trials for those responsible for atrocities, and oversight to ensure it never happens again. The Emperor's expression hardened. You're asking for unconditional surrender. I'm asking for justice, Emperor. Your empire has conquered and enslaved dozens of species. That ends now. And if I refuse? Morrison gestured to the tactical display showing the galaxy-wide collapse of Imperial control. Then you'll fall anyway. The only question is how many people die in the process. The Emperor stared at the display for a long moment, watching his life's work crumble in real time. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute defeat. How do I know humanity won't simply replace the Empire with its own dominion? Because, Emperor, we never wanted to rule the galaxy. We just wanted to be left alone. Your people made that impossible when they decided to frame us for murder and invade our world. Everything that followed was your choice. The transmission ended, and Morrison knew that within hours, the Emperor would announce the Empire's surrender. Not to save his empire, that was already lost, but to save whatever remained of the civilization that had created it. Major Williams approached with a final report. Sir, intelligence estimates that formal hostilities will end within the month. The transition period will be complex, but our projections show stable democratic governments emerging on most former imperial worlds within 2 years. Morrison nodded, looking out at the stars visible through the bunker's observation deck. 70 years ago, a crashed alien ship had started humanity down a path that led to this moment. Earth had gone from a single isolated world to the catalyst that liberated an entire galaxy. But perhaps most importantly, they had done it while remaining true to their values. The boogeymen who had terrified an empire weren't monsters at all. They were protectors, ensuring that the darkness between the stars never again threatened the light of free worlds. The Galactic Empire had sent assassins to destroy Earth. Instead, Earth had unleashed something far more dangerous than any weapon. The idea that freedom was worth fighting for, and that no empire, no matter how powerful, could stand against beings who refused to surrender their right to exist. In the end, that had been enough to change everything. The first Empire warship exploded without warning, a brilliant flash that lit up the night sky. Then another, and another. Sarah pressed her face against the window, watching in amazement as the seemingly invincible alien fleet began taking casualties from an enemy they couldn't see or understand. Stealth fighters that didn't appear on any official roster, weapons that violated known physics, and tactics that no conventional military would ever employ. My God, Dr. Vasquez breathed. They actually did it. They've been preparing for this for decades. But even as Sarah watched humanity's secret guardians engage the Empire's forces, she knew this was only the beginning. The real war was about to start, and Earth was about to show the galaxy why some species should never be underestimated. The last thing she heard before the explosions drowned out all other sound was Admiral Kethmore's panicked transmission to his fleet. Fall back! Fall back! What are these things? They're not showing up on any sensors. And somewhere in the darkness above London, humanity's boogeymen continued their deadly work, proving that sometimes the monsters hiding in the shadows are the ones protecting you from the real nightmare outside.